Who will decide the fate of the black male is the topic of the discussion sponsored by the University of Southern California's School of Social Work and the organization called S.O.L.I.D. I'm Michael Reel, and this is ReelUrbanNews.com. Join us for an exclusive conversation with Professors Jody Armour, Michael Jackson, and the Chief of Public Safety, John Thomas. USC is located in the heart of South Central Los Angeles. SC has one of the most global and diverse student bodies in all of academia. In addition to attracting students from all over the globe, USC also attracts students from the very community in which it lives, the community of South Central Los Angeles.
That's going to be a hard intro to live up to or to speak up to, but I'm not sure that on an occasion like this that, performance should be foremost in my mind. It should be kind of what this means for all of these black males to be together and black women trying to support and think about our particular plight in America in 2013. And the quote that I had to include in my own book was their data, very careful scholars, that in many inner city neighborhoods in America, 90% of the young black males are going to wind up in jail, on probation, on parole at some point in their lives. 90%. That's not hyperbole. That's not an inflated figure. That's what time is. When you talk about mass incarceration, you're talking about the crack plague starting around 84 and its festering aftermath. The numbers are there. It's real easy. The math is simple. Right? That's where you get that 90% figure from. If it's not us who's addressing that issue, who's going to address it? Well, as Katrina showed you, sadly, they aren't. And I'm going to say they aren't without any malice, without any recriminations toward white folk.
Educators, I'm going to give you some educational enrollment data. This is last year's, 2013, from the California Post-Secondary Education Commission, CPEC, CPEC. Last year, there were 25,000 black high school seniors in the state of California. How many do you think of that 25,000 are UC eligible? If you haven't heard that term, that's University of California, meaning you've got your 4 years of English, 3 years of math, blah, 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 the AUF requirements, all that. How many do you think were eligible? I didn't say how many went. I said, how many do you think were eligible? Anybody want to just give me a quick stab at that? Anybody want to throw a number out? 200. Okay, you just cut it to the knee, didn't you? 1,600 were eligible, but probably 200 might have gone. Because just because they're eligible doesn't mean that their counselor is giving them the right information. Okay, you got it. Good.
My hardest challenge as a UCLA student living in this neighborhood was after my freshman year when I didn't go on campus because I had to commute. It wasn't a matter of if I got stopped by the police on my way home. I had to take the surface street down Wilshire Boulevard. And those are familiar. Westwood, Wilshire, you gotta go to Beverly Hills. So it wasn't a matter of if I got stopped. It was when.
Now, finally, I just want to give you one example. This one was a little more scary. After studying for a while, one evening, finals, my dormies, I think those of you who live in dorms know what that is. Two white guys suggested that we take a break and do a Tommy's run. And I don't know if you know what Tommy's run is, but let me interpret for you. This meant that I drive them to Tommy Burgers, which was in mid LA, to get a burger. And I had the only car on the floor. And So we all piled into my little VW bug, and we went to on our way to Tommy's. But halfway there, I looked in my rearview mirror and noticed that an LAPD cruiser was several car lengths behind me. So obviously the paranoia set in, but I kept my cool and proceeded cautiously. But after a few miles from my destination, I alerted my passengers that I was being pulled over by the police, and I was unsure what the reason was. My passengers obviously panicked and immediately queried me as to what I had done wrong. They asked me if I had any drugs in the car. And obviously I lost it at that point because I'm clean as they come. Had no, this allegation of having drugs just blew my mind. So obviously I got really upset after the searching that I had drugs and I had done something wrong to be warranted to be stopped by the police. But anyway, the police approached my car, guns drawn, and I was literally snatched out of the car. I'll never forget this. Put face down on the sidewalk with a shotgun held to the back of my neck. Afterwards, it was explained to me that I was stopped because I fit the description of someone who had committed a robbery in the Wilshire area, and because my front windshield had a crack that was in a bullet hole. And yet, you know, these cops were, police were miles behind me, and they all obviously saw the crack in the window. Well, anyway, I was guilty of driving while black. So.
Well, thank you. It was fascinating. I didn't know all that was happening today.
Yeah, this is. It turned out real well with the, all the credit goes to these folks right in here.
Dr. Armour, how important are events like we saw tonight to this community?
Oh, critically important. This is about solidarity. This is about taking control over our own destiny. This is about becoming masters of our own fate. And we see that if we leave our fate to others, you get the crack war and its festering aftermath, you get mass incarceration. So events like this are absolutely vital.
What was the takeaway, Dr. Jackson, from your perspective? A nice room full of African-American men who look like you and I, who talk like you and I, and who share our background. What was your takeaway?
My takeaway was that there's a real thirst out there for knowledge, to understand what's going on around you and our communities where we live, and most of all, how to navigate everything that we are facing in society right now.
Chief Thomas, you are a product of this community, this Los Angeles community, the South Central community, this USC community. What was your perspective this evening? A room full of people who look like you. There were also some young people who I'm sure hastened you back to your youth.
You know, it was very, very pleasing to see that, because the reality is the diversity of the age group, was symbolic that, that there is that thirst, that there is that hunger at a multitude of generations. Because again, the reality of being African American and male transcends age, class, what your educational level is, because at the end of the day, as I'm sitting with two professors, and me as a 30-year law enforcement person, we still suffer and struggle with the same things that everyone in that room. We don't get to separate ourselves by whatever titles and accomplishment we made, because we all could get in our cars and be subjected to the same things for the same reason. So it was good to see that diversity in ages, because again, we're all one, and our issue transcends anything that we've achieved, accomplished because of the skin color.
Dr. Armour, briefly, you spoke about a challenging occurrence that took place a few months back at a major hotel chain,
Yes.
where you're still being questioned.
Yeah.
for the color of your skin.
Oh yeah.
How challenging was that for you?
You know, J.W. Marriott had told me that no matter how much your credentials look like, or no matter how much money you make, you know, at the end of the day, you still fit a certain profile and you can expect to be treated on that basis. So it reconnected me with this struggle that I'm writing about all the time. It's not just something that happens to young black males, it happens to all black males that don't look a certain way and fit a certain profile.
Finally, Chief, what's your hope going forward for African American men?
Well, my hope is what was present in that room. You know, the fact that, you know, there are people that showed up tonight. They could have been anywhere. I mean, they could have been doing anything. But we had a room full of predominantly African American males that are still cognizant of our situation. They're still mindful of our reality, and they're willing to come out and educate themselves and raise their level of consciousness to hopefully, you know, make a difference in the lives of someone around them. Each one teach one. So the reality is, my hope is that, you know, men and women that were in that witnessed this, that will translate into some positive action.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Right? Because I understand racism as a result of my research as something that goes on, or racial discrimination, let's call it. It's something that goes on not just in your conscious mental processes, but unconscious. And so a lot of racially liberal, well-meaning white folk and other folk discriminate against blacks unconsciously all the time. That's really at the base of a lot of profiling, and that's what makes profiling so intractable, so hard to get at a lot of times. It's not going on the conscious level. You think you're calling it like you see it. What that means is that at the end of the day, you know, and I could go into a lot more research and talk about a lot more kind of the empirical stuff, but the bottom line on it is, if we don't love black people, they ain't getting love.
In the city of Ducksworth, and I'm a former gang member. What I found out is that I was a very emotional person, and that was my downfall. If anybody said anything, I'll go off and just suffer the consequences later without even thinking. I'm moving forward to help poor rock and help. And that's what this is all about, building the village. And it's called love, because I didn't know what it was. I was a hypocrite. One day I said I love my mother, but yet I'm out here hurting my own kind. And I'm like saying, all I'm living for is a name. And then I die with that name. I was on dialysis for 15 years. That was my payback. That was my karma. And I'm glad I'm not dead. Because if I can help somebody, I'm willing to die to help my brothers and sisters now. And I mean that from the heart. I love you guys.
What was your takeaway? What did you get tonight from this meeting?
Well, today I got a lot. Like I saw like a connection. Like now I know that it's possible for like us to create a dialogue between us younger men and us older men. At first I thought it was impossible because like all this ignorance. Like when you try to stop to talk to somebody, like people just avoid you and don't really even care. But like today I saw a man who cared. Like I don't have a father figure. I grew up without a dad. I don't know my dad. So like I see people here that like male figures that I can go after.
How important is it that the university sponsors events like we saw tonight?
Yeah, tonight's event is very important to bring the community together and have real conversations about issues that matter, and bringing people from the university who study these subjects in academic fields and disciplines that we can come together and join as a university and a community. That's critically important, and that's been part of USC's history for a very long time.
How successful was tonight?
Great. We had a lot of people come out from the community and from Los Angeles, from the USC community. People really enjoyed themselves. But most importantly, I think, Paul, you can agree, people really got to talk about what was on their heart. And they also got to talk about solutions. And so tonight we weren't just discussing something, there were people in the room who were really committed, like the Brotherhood Crusade, like the Los Angeles Urban League, and faculty of USC who really want to not only talk about something, but do something.